You're listening to the Taylor Marshall Show, episode 16. This week we're going to talk about Our Lady of Guadalupe and how to set goals that actually stick. There's one secret about that. We're going to share it today. Stay tuned. Howdy, and thank you for tuning in to the Taylor Marshall Show. This is the podcast for everyone who wants to take their faith to the next level. And my goal this week is to tell you the backstory about Our Lady of Guadalupe. You may already know that Our Lady of Guadalupe actually goes way back to Spain, and some scholars believe it goes all the way back to the New Testament, back to a statue carved by Saint Luke the Evangelist. It's a very interesting story, and I'm going to share that with you this week. I'm also going to go through, in the tip of the week, how to set realistic goals that actually stick. Goals that you can keep, goals that you can accomplish. I am a big goals person. I try to do a lot of things, and the only way I can keep track of it and keep motivated is through these goals. I'm going to share with you one secret that will help you keep your goals and your resolutions. This is really important as we're in the month of December and we're looking at January 1st and we're thinking about our New Year's resolutions. Almost everybody that I talk to does it wrong. They forget a key ingredient. So we're going to look at what that special sauce or that special ingredient is so that your goals will stick and you can actually accomplish some great things in 2014. So stay tuned for that. We've also got our Proverb of the week, and we've got our Latin word of the week at the end of the show. So it's going to be a good one, especially with this Our Lady of Guadalupe information. It's really exciting preparing it, and I can't wait to share it with you. And as I say every week, this podcast is brought to you by the New St. Thomas Institute. The New St. Thomas Institute is a member site where I teach college-like lessons, courses in Catholic theology and philosophy. And let me tell you something, I love it. We've been doing it for 3 months. It is the best thing that I've ever done career-wise, job-wise. We are able to cover some really neat material. We have a great forum. I get in discussions with members, with students all the time. It's extremely enriching for myself. And the feedback has been so positive and so encouraging. It's really a dream come true for me personally. And I would encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about theology, more about philosophy, this is the perfect opportunity. It's much less expensive than enrolling in an online program with a college. It's, I think, easier. It's more accessible. I make it fun. And we learn a lot of stuff. This month we're doing everything on the Blessed Virgin Mary. And we put up a video on, is Mary the mediatrix of all graces or just some graces? It's a controversial topic. We also did a video which I put up on the site at taylormarshall.com as a freebie. Is Mary the mediatrix of the 7 sacraments? Have you ever thought about that? It's an interesting topic. And then we also put up a video entitled, Did Thomas Aquinas Deny the Immaculate Conception? And he did explicitly in the Summa Theologiae in part 3 there. However, it's not the full story. There's an earlier period in Thomas's life and perhaps a later period in which he affirmed the Immaculate Conception, and we look at that in detail. So these are kind of things that we're going through in the New St. Thomas Institute, and I think you'll love it. I think you should join, sign up. And, we also put up some bonuses this week, and these are for people who will join before the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is December 12th, Thursday. So if you're interested, now's the time to join. You can get your low tuition. It's $25 per month for now. We will be raising that in the months to come. So this is the time to join. And we have some bonuses. I put up some more MP3 courses. These aren't videos, these are just audios. One entitled, How Did We Lose Catholic Masculinity and How Can We Regain It? I did one on Josephology, the theology of Saint Joseph. A lot of people don't know there's a theology of Saint Joseph, so there's a course there on that. And then also for people who sign up before December 12th, Feast Day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, I'm giving my book, The Crucified Rabbi, for free in an ebook format. So you get all of that for the price of one hard copy book at Barnes & Noble. It's just $25 a month. You get videos, and you get all the old videos from the previous months. So you're getting hours and hours and hours of Catholic education. So check it out, please. Go on over to newsaitthomas.com. That's newsaitthomas.com. Saint is spelled out, so new, S-A-I-N-T, Thomas.com. Watch the little video there. See if it's right for you. I think it will be. And sign up, and I'll see you on the inside. Now let's take a look at our tip of the week, how to secure your goals for the next year. You know, goals used to discourage me because I was doing goals wrong. If you create a bunch of goals and you don't achieve them, they're just a list of guilt. You don't want to look at them because you feel like a failure because you're not accomplishing what you purpose to do. And it shouldn't be that way. Goals should get you pumped up, energize you. And as people who are baptized, people who love Christ, we should live a life that has meaning and purpose in which we are achieving things for the greater glory of God and the kingdom of heaven. Right? So the goals that we set should be, of course, intentional and driven towards God and fulfilling our duties. And by doing that, we'll have meaning and purpose. We'll have joy. So let's take a look at the secret of creating good, solid goals that will keep you hooked all year long. All right? And what you want to do is you want to find the pain points in your life. You want to find what went wrong. Now, this can also bring about a lot of guilt and discouragement as you look over the past year, things that went wrong, things that you messed up, relationships maybe that ended. So I think the better way to approach it, instead of saying, what did I screw up, is say, what was missing in my life in the past year? Or if you're doing it on a month-to-month basis, the past month. Find what's missing and write down those things. I'm going to challenge you to find 5 things that were missing over the past year. But it's not a negative experience. It's also a positive experience. So then find 5 points of joy in the past year. What are 5 things that went really well? What are 5 things that you accomplished, that you feel good about? You know, I think sometimes as Catholics, we like to focus on the negative. We focus on what we've done wrong. We go to confession. That's part of what we do in confession. And I think that sometimes that can condition us to only focus on what we're doing wrong. Sometimes we're doing some things that are right, and we need to take a moment and celebrate that. Not because it's within us or our own nature, but because God has given us that grace. It's a moment of worship. It's a moment of thanksgiving. It's a moment of gratitude and saying, Lord Jesus Christ, you changed me this year. I'm better in this category. I'm more happy. I have more joy because you have done this in my life. And write that down. So you should have 5 things that were missing, that weren't so great, and then 5 things that were really great. And as you look at those, those things in the paper, each column, you should pray and think about, how is it that I need to continue the good and change what was missing? And these are how you should set your goals. See, goals just don't pop out of the thin air. You need to be strategic about the goals that you set. So you need to look into your own life and use the past data and then construct the goals for what is needed. What is needed is that you continue in what you did well, and you get away from or reform or change what wasn't going so well, or you add what was missing. All right, so that's the key ingredient. And then the secret is specificity. This is where people go so wrong on New Year's resolution. They'll say this, I really want to get into shape this next year. That's a horrible goal. It's a great intention, but it's a horrible goal because getting in shape doesn't mean anything. Does that mean losing 1 pound or 20 pounds? Does it mean running 1 mile or running a 10K? What does getting in shape mean? It's not a good goal, but these are the kind of goals that people make. Or I want to save more money this year. Terrible goal. All right, it's a good intention, but it's not a good goal because it's not specific. Bad goals are generic, they're general. Good goals are specific. So a better goal, a good goal would be I want to save $100 per week consecutively for 52 weeks. That's a specific goal, and anyone could walk up to you at any moment, or you could ask yourself, am I on the goal or off the goal? Because it's numeric and it's specific. Another goal you hear, I want to spend more time with family. That's a terrible goal. Again, a good intention, a bad goal. Instead, you need to write down or choose something specific. I will read every night to my family. I will schedule a weekly date with my spouse. This way, you can measure it as the year goes on, and you can see, am I on my goal or am I off my goal? Another one you hear is, I want to pray more or be more spiritual. That's a terrible goal. It's a good sentiment. It's a good thing to intend, but it's not a goal. What you need to do is make it super specific. So instead of saying, I want to be a more spiritual person, you say, I am going to schedule 15 minutes in my calendar every day to do mental prayer for 365 days in the next year. Or I'm going to pray the rosary every day, 365 days in this next year. That way you know at any moment I'm on my goal or I'm off my goal. You can take all this to your business, your finances as well. Some people say, well, I really want to grow my business or be more successful. Again, those are bad goals. No good. The intention's right, but the goal is no good because it's generic. It's general. You have to get specific. So you have to say something like, I want to increase the number of my clients 15% by July, and I want to increase them another 15% by Christmas. That's very specific. You can measure it, and throughout the year you can say, am I on my goal or off my goal? I think you get the idea here. When you define the goal, it must be specific and defined. Even the word definition, it has that word finis in there from Latin, right? Like infinite means no boundaries. Definite means there are boundaries. So you have to set the limits and the boundaries of each goal so you know at every single day of the next 365 days, am I on it or not? Am I succeeding in the goal or am I failing? If there's a way to know that you're on it or off it, you will be much, much more successful because it will be clear to you. Being healthy, being more spiritual, spending time with family, all of those things are good, but they aren't goals. They aren't goals. You have to be specific. And I think if you do this, I think if you just take 1 hour, schedule 1 hour in your busy schedule, get alone with God with a piece of paper and a pencil, write down the 5 points of pain, things that we're missing, the 5 good things, and then create some specific goals. And don't go crazy. Don't create a lot of them. Just maybe 2 or 3 that you're going to track all year long. And when you get to Christmas next time, yeah, you may have failed a little bit, but I guarantee you will have accomplished a lot. You will have saved a lot of money. You will have lost some weight. Your finances will be in better order. You'll be closer to God. Your family will be stronger because you set defined goals. So there it is. Tip of the week. Find your pain. Find what's working well. Celebrate that. And then create specific goals. Our proverb of the week relates to the importance of setting personal goals, and it's Proverbs chapter 13, verse 12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life, unquote. So a hope deferred will make your heart sick. If you have a sick heart, if you're discouraged, there's likely some hope that has been deferred in your life. And so instead of continuing to defer it, turn to God, pray, and seek a way in His wisdom to make it actualized, to bring it to fulfillment. Because the next half of the verse of the proverb says, a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. This is, of course, referring to the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. Our eternal life, the abundant life that's promised to us in Christ, is something that needs to be fulfilled. It is a desire that has been set in our heart through baptism by sanctifying grace. And when it is fulfilled, we will have true joy. But in this life, we have little bitty hints of that. And that is when we set goals, when we try to accomplish something in the will of God, and it's fulfilled, it is for us like a tree of life in this valley of tears. So set those goals, and remember, a hope deferred is a sick heart, but a desire fulfilled is the tree of life. So I was having coffee with my buddy Andy Farley. He was the baseball coach of my oldest son's baseball team. And we were sitting together having coffee and talking about all sorts of things. And we both love Our Lady, the Blessed Virgin Mary. We both have a deep love for her. And we were talking about Our Lady of Guadalupe. And Andy started sharing some things that I'd kind of heard and also some new things that I had never heard. And it got me reinterested in Our Lady of Guadalupe. We have a really beautiful painting of Our Lady of Guadalupe that goes over our family altar. So I have a special love for Our Lady of Guadalupe. She's the Empress of America and really the icon of the pro-life movement, not only in North America and South America, but all over the world. And my friend Andy was telling me something about the origin of the Our Lady of Guadalupe devotion. And as you know, I love the origins of things. I have a trilogy of book called The Origins of Catholicism, The Crucified Rabbi, Catholic Perspective on Paul, and The Eternal City. Those are 3 books on the origins of Catholicism. So when I started learning more about the origins of Guadalupe, going back to the 1st century, my ears really stuck out, and I wanted to learn more. So Andy was telling me that there's a tradition that Our Lady of Guadalupe, that apparition on St. Juan Diego's tilma, we all know it, and we know the backstory. I'll summarize it a little bit. Actually goes back to Our Lady of Guadalupe now the tilma itself is original miraculous in Mexico, but the devotion and the name of Our Lady of Guadalupe goes back to Spain, in Extremadura region of western Spain. And that the Spaniards who were coming over to the New World generally had a devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary under this title, Our Lady of Guadalupe, even before the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to Juan Diego and imprinted her miraculous image on his tilma, on his cactus cloth, kind of a poncho thing. If you don't know the story, you haven't seen it. But what I didn't know, Andy told me, is that this devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe, according to tradition, small t tradition, goes back to the 1st century to Saint Luke the Evangelist. You know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. That Luke, tradition says he was a physician, a doctor, and he was also a painter. And this tradition says that not only did he paint images of Christ and Our Lady, he also carved a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, a small wooden statue. And he was buried with this statue. And when his relics were transferred to Constantinople and they opened up his casket, they found this statue along with the relics of St. Luke. And this statue was given to the man who would become Pope Gregory the Great. He died in 604. He is one of the 2 popes named the Great, Leo the Great and Pope Gregory the Great. And when Pope Gregory the Great was the legate for the previous pope, he was given this image as a gift, and it was brought back to Rome. Subsequently, he was made the Pope, Pope Gregory the Great, or Gregory the First, and he gave this statue that had been allegedly made by Saint Luke to Saint Leander. Now, Saint Leander is a Spanish saint, and he helped convert the Visigothic kings that were in Spain at that time, which was a major, major win for the Catholic Church. So Saint Leander received this statue from Pope Saint Gregory the Great, and it became a revered object, a revered statue there in Spain. However, not long after this, the Muslims started invading Spain. If you know your history, you know this is around the time when you have Charlemagne and all these battles. And honestly, we almost lost Europe to the Muslims way back when. Unfortunately, the Catholic Church was strong, and there were mighty men who fought them back. But Spain itself did succumb to the Muslim invasion beginning around the year 711. You could remember that year because of the convenience store, 711. That's when the Muslims came, was 711. I guess you can get the humor in that if you think about it a little bit. Okay, so in 711, the Muslims come, and the priest and the clergy and the people are fearful. Many of the holy items in Spain are hidden or buried for fear of the Muslims destroying them. And this little statue was buried, was hidden during this time of Muslim invasion and lost for centuries. This little statue made and painted by St. Luke that made its way to Constantinople, that made its way to Rome, and then to Spain. Well, beginning in the 14th century, a shepherd named Gil Cordero began to report visions of Our Lady in a field in western Spain. And one of the traditions is his cow, he lost a cow, he went to go find it. After 3 days, he found the cow, he thought it was dead. He was going to skin it to save the leather, and the cow jumped up, and Our Lady appeared to him and said, I want a shrine built on this spot where the poor are fed and, where masses are said and where my mercy is celebrated. So they dug in that spot. They found this ancient statue preserved there in the earth, which had been there since the 700s, so for almost 700 years. And a chapel was built there, and it became a place of pilgrimage and devotion. And notably, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand moved their residence to this site. And this is where Christopher Columbus, back in the 1480s, I don't know exactly the year, 1480s, so previous to the finding of America in 1492, he comes and he makes his pitch that he wants to try to find the Indies by going the other way around the globe. And Christopher Columbus made a pilgrimage to this shrine and was devoted to Our Lady of Guadalupe, as was his crew. And this is what really connects the old world, Europe, Africa, Asia, to the New World, North America and South America, is this devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. That little statue became known as Our Lady of Guadalupe. People debate on the meaning of Guadalupe. Guadi probably comes from the Arabic word wadi, similar to the Hebrew word wadi, which means a river or a stream. And then lupe, obviously in Latin, that means wolf. There may be other etymologies in Arabic. Anyway, the name of the river moving along there was Guadalupe. And since Our Lady's shrine was nearby, it was called Our Lady of Guadalupe. So when Christopher Columbus comes over, he has this great devotion. They almost die in a storm on the way back. And when they get off the ship, he and his crew go to the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe and thank the Blessed Virgin Mary for her intercession and for her prayers, that they made it there and back. And so that was all in 1492. Fast forward just a little bit into 1531, And that's when Juan Diego, this little Aztec man, is walking along, and the Blessed Virgin Mary appears to him December 9th, 1531, and requests that the bishop build her a shrine there at that spot. You can see the similarity to the request back in Spain at Our Lady of Guadalupe there, where she asks for a little shrine to be made. But the bishop, as you know, does not believe Juan Diego. And so Our Lady gives a sign, and she causes, miraculously, roses to appear on the hilltop and asks Juan Diego to take these roses and put them into his tilma, his overcoat, his cloak. And he does so, and then she rearranges the roses with her hands. He walks to the bishop, and he unfurls his cloak, and the roses come out, and there, imprinted on the tilma of Juan Diego, is the miraculous image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. The bishop recognizes this as Our Lady of Guadalupe from back in Spain. The image looks different, but he associates the Spanish devotion to Our Lady under the name Guadalupe with this new apparition in New Spain, in Mexico. And so, and you've seen the image, I'm sure, but for those who haven't, if they're new to Catholicism or they're unfamiliar with this tradition, it's well, I'll just put it in the show notes, a picture of Our Lady of Guadalupe. But she looks more native, she looks more Aztec. The clothes that she is wearing are definitely indigenous. She has a kind of dark purple, almost black sash around her belly, which symbolizes that she's pregnant. And this signifies for the native people that she is pregnant with Christ, and she is bearing him or delivering him over for this new people to be evangelized. And when they look into the eyes of Our Lady of Guadalupe, into this image, they see that she is their mother. Because, the Spaniards came and pillaged quite a bit, and the natives were not completely trusting of their new white European neighbors. And this image signified for them that Christ was born and died and rose again for them. For them. It was a specific apparition just for them. And so this image, which was imprinted miraculously, almost like a photograph, into the tilma of Juan Diego, is still preserved to this day, which is in itself miraculous because those cactus fibers decay usually within a decade. And so it's been around for about almost 500 years, and it's still intact. You can still see the image. The colors are still bright despite all the smoke and soot and even an explosion at one point that sought to destroy the image. And scientists have looked at it, and they cannot determine what sort of pigments or dyes or paint were used to create this image. It truly is supernatural. Some scientists have gone into the eyeballs using technology from NASA and looked into the image of, or into the image of the eyeballs, and there they can see Juan Diego, the bishops, and those that were present in that miraculous moment when the roses were shown to the bishop and his court. If you've seen the image, you'll see that there are stars on her outer robe. This signifies that she is assumed above the stars, that in a sense she is clothed with the universe by being exalted and assumed into heaven by Christ, since she is his mother. And this is to fulfill the 10 Commandments. Honor thy father and mother. Jesus perfectly fulfilled the 10 Commandments. He honored his father perfectly, and he also honored his mother perfectly. He honored her in only the way a divine son could honor his human mother. He made her without all stain of sin, and he assumed her to the highest place in heaven. All this is fitting and in accord with the 10 Commandments. Also, you'll see there's a little cross on her neck, identifying her with the Catholic missionaries. And over her womb, on her dress, is a 4-petal flower, And this is the symbol amongst the Aztecs for a deity, for divinity, which symbolizes that the baby in her womb is God. He is the Son of God. At her feet is the crescent moon. And this goes back to the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, chapter 12, verse 1. And this means that, again, that she is assumed into heaven, and she is above the realm of change. You know, if you go back to Plato and Aristotle, sometimes when I'm teaching Aristotle or Plato, we'll talk about the cosmology of the ancients. And, you know, for Aristotle, everything above the moon was unchanging. Everything below the moon was changing. That's kind of the dividing line in Aristotle's mind, because the moon is waxing and waning. So it's imperfect, right? But above the moon, everything is eternal. That's how Aristotle sees things. So when the Blessed Virgin Mary is standing on top of the moon, the crescent moon, it's symbolizing that she is over the world of change, over the world of waxing and waning. She has been elevated by God. She's not a goddess. She's a human just like us. But she's been elevated to a great place of honor and glory. So that's the significance of the moon under Mary's feet. And that moon, that crescent under her feet, is almost always associated with her title as the Immaculate Conception. The Immaculate Conception, she who is without sin. It also symbolizes that she will eventually crush Islam by converting those people and destroying that heresy. And she will ultimately crush communism and Marxism. You know that from the crescent, right? The red crescent. Because of what we've learned in her apparitions regarding, at Fatima, regarding the consecration and conversion of Russia. So the great two enemies of the church, Islam and communism, will be defeated through the prayers and intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so that's the backstory. We don't have that much time. There's a lot more we could talk about. And there's a really good book that I want to recommend to you. I did a blog post last week, 5 of the best books on the Blessed Virgin Mary, and this book was number 5. It's by Paul Bad. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's Badde. I'm going to type it in here real quick while I'm recording and just make sure that I've got that right. Sorry, this is rather unprofessional of me. Yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah, it's Paul Bad, Badde. And the name of the book is Maria of Guadalupe, Shaper of History, Shaper of Hearts. It has so much great information in this whole backstory about Our Lady of Guadalupe, how it relates to the Old World and the New World. I'd encourage you to get that book, Maria of Guadalupe by Paul Bad. Or you can just go to my website and it's linked up there. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that it increases your devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. I love Our Lady of Guadalupe. I think it's just absolutely beautiful that she revealed, or rather that God revealed, her in an image that was not painted by human hands. We have an icon or an image, in a sense, painted by God himself. So it's a very special image of Our Lady. A friend of mine, a priest who's a Franciscan of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, Father Juan Diego, great name right there, pointed out to me once that Our Lady of Guadalupe is a perpetual apparition. Most apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary, she appears and then she goes away. Like you can't go to Lourdes and see her there. There's a statue, but it's not really her. But in Our Lady of Guadalupe, that miraculous image perseveres throughout the centuries. You can go there and you can see that miraculous image. So it's a miraculous apparition that continues through time. So thanks be to God. Our Lady of Guadalupe, pray for us. Our Latin word of the week is Domina. And before I go into the significance and the meaning of that word in Latin, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been listening to this podcast and who have been sharing it with their friends. I really appreciate that. We've got a lot of new listeners lately, and that's just wonderful. And thank you to everyone who has rated this podcast in iTunes. I really appreciate you for doing that. And if you're new to this podcast, please do subscribe to it. That will automatically download every episode that comes out every week. The podcast comes out on Wednesdays, and it'll automatically sync it up with your iPhone, your iPod, your iPad, or your iWhatever, or your Android device. Got to show love for my Android friends. And also, if you haven't done it yet, please do think about reviewing it. I'd love a 5-star review if you like this podcast or whatever you got in you. I'd really appreciate it. And let's take a look now at this Latin word of the week, domina. Domina means, it's usually translated lady, like Domina Nostra, Our Lady. And it can refer to the female version of a lord. So like my lord and my lady, that would be dominus, lord, and domina, lady. And this word domina in Latin comes into most of the Romance languages in a number of ways that you're probably familiar with, like Notre Dame. That dame there is an abbreviation in French of domina. Or in Italian, Madonna, that just means my lady. It's just a abbreviated form of my domina, Madonna. What else? Damsel is also kind of a French adaptation of the word domina, and we also in English have the word dame for a female, for a woman of respect. And we refer to Our Lady as the domina, as Our Lady, because she stands as the mother over the household of God. And so we honor her as the domina, the lady, the householder, because that word domina and dominus relates to the Latin word domus, which means house. So a dominus or a domina are the people who are in charge of the house. And Mary is placed at the right hand of Christ, and so she has that status over the household of faith. Well, hey, thanks for listening. As we celebrate Our Lady of Guadalupe this year on the 12th, you have a lot more things to think about and share with your friends, and encourage them to learn more about Our Lady of Guadalupe, the star of the new evangelization. And speaking of the new evangelization, our Lord Jesus Christ said that you are the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So go out there and be salty.